Having earned his final step, his final way in, Odysseus finally gets to have his reunion with Penelope. Only after proof back and forth do they finally get their moment to see one another. Homer expresses this moment in a wonderful simile that draws on some of the ways similes work that we pointed out earlier. I thought we'd take a look at that one. Penelope, as she's looking at him, joy, warm as the joy that shipwrecked sailors feel when they catch the sight of land. Poseidon has struck their well-rigged ship on the open sea with gale winds and crushing walls of waves, and only a few escape, swimming and struggling out of the frothing surf to reach the shore, their bodies crusted with salt, but buoyed up with joy as they plant their feet on solid ground again, spared a deadly fate. So joyous now, to her, the sight of her husband, vivid in her gaze, that her white arms embracing his neck would never for a moment let him go. So what is happening inside this simile? You'll remember in some of the earlier ones we looked at, key characters get a chance to kind of trade places as Homer starts a comparison that seems to be a comparison of one person that you're pretty sure who it is, but then it gets turned around and matches another person who is taking the place of that other one. We saw this when Eumaeus was compared to a father welcoming home a son who's been gone a long time, when Eumaeus embraces Telemachus. We definitely see it here. Look at the joy that Penelope feels. She feels the joy of someone who is like a sailor who's been shipwrecked, who Poseidon has racked with awful punishments, who's just barely escaped by swimming, who's struggling in the frothing surf to reach the shore, and then she feels like someone who has just landed on home ground and is able to plant her feet solidly again. What Homer does with this simile is to allow Penelope to be Odysseus for a while, and so too can Odysseus, the one that welcomes home the one that's been so far away for so long, play the role of Penelope. It's a wonderful simile that shows the closeness of their intimacy. Penelope's suffering at home is here compared and made congruent with Odysseus's tremendous suffering out there in the wider world. The two of them share their reunion. They also have shared an identical, in this case, or at least a congruent kind of pain. Homer's very clever and subtle way of continuing the connection between these two. Now that they have made their connection, the two of them sit down and have their reunion. The reunion, first of all, starts with a lot of talking, a lot of telling. I've got my story and I have to tell it to you. The whole epic comes out again as Odysseus tells Penelope where he's been. We have to fill in this piece of his identity. He's earned back his name. He's earned back his strength. He's got clothing back on him. He's got his place now on Ithaca. He's got his place in his city. He's got his house back. He's got his family back. He's got his son back. And now, finally, he has Penelope back. And when he has that, he needs to share with Penelope all this past that she has missed out on in his own life for him to fill her in. So he launches in and goes through this whole long retelling of the entire Odyssey as he lets her know what it is. Then things turn and book 24 begins and things are not over. The Odyssey is in some ways kind of like a story that just can't quite end. Some have suggested, who've taken a close look at book 24, that this must have been added on later to an original Odyssey that had only 23 books. I'm not sure I buy that argument. The basis for the argumentation is only what you all have already been exposed to. There's no exterior evidence base that we're appealing to. It's just how closely does book 24 parallel fit in with all the rest. I think the thematic statement that it's making that says that Odysseus's journey, this great archetypal wayfarer, is not going to end with him safe at home. There's always more wandering. The Odyssey is not really going to end. So in book 24, the story continues. We wind up following the suitors down to the underworld. They've been killed, as you know, and down they go. We hear then the whole story one more time as the suitors recount it to Agamemnon. They tell him all the things that have gone on and how Odysseus set things right. He's, of course, thrilled because for his friend, and contrasts his own situation, the one that's been coursing through the background of Odysseus' story. Agamemnon, in the closing book, yet again contrasts his own situation with that of the situation of Odysseus and Penelope. There is a strong indication of the momentousness of what has just happened. It's so huge that tales about it are not just limited to this upper world. Tales about it are buzzing across the whole cosmos. Up in Olympus they care, down in the underworld they care, and surely in our world people care. Odysseus, as this all is going on, heads off to visit his father Laertes, finds him rolling around in the cow dung, poor man, feeling in this awful situation. Odysseus, almost strangely, almost a little perversely, decides to start testing his father and lying to his father and all these things. It's difficult to say exactly what that test is. I want to make sure you're really my father. I want to make sure that you really love me. Well, the man's rolling around in dung because you're missing. Of course he loves you. But it is just Odysseus' way. He is a tester, he's a trickster, he's a liar. So he goes through his testing of his father. His father then wants some test in return. Are you really Odysseus? And Odysseus shows him his scar. So his identity proof comes back again. He can show himself to Laertes as being the man that he is. The townspeople in Ithaca are upset about what's happened. All their relatives, the suitors, have just been killed. They're ready for battle. They get ready to bring things to a head. Odysseus now stands again with his allies. He's got Telemachus, he's got Eumaeus, and now he has his father by his side, Laertes too. We're ready to do battle. Athena comes in. It seems like yet another kind of episode of spear throwing is about to happen with strong cascading violence and wave after wave of killing. Athena then, at that point, jumps on in. She has a spear cast go. It leaves Laertes' hand. Athena makes it into a clean kill. This saps the energy of the enemy. She then comes in, makes peace, and says, now it is done. Like a god on the machine, she comes in and settles things in her disguise. She comes in and settles things. People, at least Odysseus has a sense that it's Athena, but she comes in disguise and says, no more, the war is done. When she does, the suitors' relatives now slink away. And with that, Odysseus has regained all of the things that make him Odysseus. His house is now stable. We know what he has to do next. He's got to go take that, remember, the oar, and bring it all the way inland until someone mistakes his oar for a winnowing fan. Once he does, he'll know he's far enough away from the sea that should he build a temple there, Poseidon will feel as though recompense has been made for the maiming of his son Polyphemus. So we know that Odysseus has more adventures ahead of him. He has recovered now his identity. He's pieced together his name, his strength, his capabilities, his family, his house, his city, his relationship, his connection with Penelope solidified, his connection in a kind of epilogue moment with his father, his connection with his past is now rejoined. So Odysseus now is finally whole again. This poor, beaten and battered man that we saw at the beginning of Book 1 is now ready to become Odysseus again. He's earned his place back to being himself. Hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to reading more myth with you all. It's a great way to start. It's always a little sad to leave the Odyssey, but trust me, great things are coming around the corner too.